Good tunes, man. Good tunes.
You bet. Welcome everyone once again to our Friday Manufacturing E-commerce Success Series. Thanks so much for being here. Yeah, we've got a few manufacturing trailblazers. We didn't buy these shirts for ourselves. First of all, Chris, Kurt, myself, other people got these from Allison DeFord. Thanks so much. Just doing a shout out to Allison, I guess, by way of wearing our shirts today. So, Kurt, I'm just going to let you take it from here, man. And dude, first of all, if people are listening on LinkedIn, you're going to see me looking over here. We're live on LinkedIn. So go ahead and let us know where you're listening from, comments for Chris or any of us, and let us know what's happening there as well. Take it over, Kurt.
Hey guys, happy Friday, man. This is beyond, man, I've been looking forward to this for just probably years, actually, not months, but years. So guys, I want to give a huge shout out to my dear friend, Chris Lukey. Chris, thank you for joining us today. How are you, my friend?
Doing great, Kurt. Thanks for having me. Damon, great to be here with you as well. I'm ready for some Friday fun. Let's put it that way.
Let's dig in. Let's dig into a little intro, and I need it. I'm going to attempt to keep it brief. It's going to be hard because, dude, you have such a huge place in my heart. So we go back a ways. So, Damon, I discovered Chris online. He had this amazing, wonderful group called Manufacturing Happy Hour. And Manufacturing Happy Hour was just a bunch of us geeky guys, dudes, ladies that were in manufacturing, a lot of automation, a lot of Rockwell folks. And man, I was like this out of place e-commerce dude, and Chris took me in with open arms and just made amazing, incredible friends at Manufacturing Happy Hour. Greg, miss you, right there, brother, part of that group. We're coming up on our 1-year anniversary, Damon. Our first speaker of Manufacturing E-commerce Success was none other than Jeff Long, another connection through Manufacturing Happy Hour. So, Chris, you are a pioneer in podcasting. And so I want to, a couple of things, guys. First off, I dropped Chris's LinkedIn profile in the chat, dropped his Manufacturing Happy Hour link. Please connect with Chris. And you look at your tagline on LinkedIn. I absolutely love this. I help manufacturers tell their story to their ideal customer. Absolutely love that. So, Chris, let's go back in time, all right? Started your journey in St. Louis. You go away to college. You're like honor everything in engineering. Talk about why engineering and how did you go that direction?
Yeah, so the engineering story actually starts back, I think, the summer right before or after 4th grade. I didn't know what an engineer was at that point, but I rode the Ninja, which is a roller coaster at Six Flags St. Louis, like you said, where I grew up. And I'm like, well, that was the coolest thing I've ever done, or maybe ever will do. And I'm like, how does one get into designing roller coasters? And my parents were like, well, that's what engineers do. I'm like, that's my degree.
There you go.
Anyway, it was locked in from that point forward. And obviously, I've kind of shifted paths a little bit. But for anyone that follows me on LinkedIn, there's definitely some amusement industry content that still works its way into my profile because it's so adjacent to the manufacturing space. So, but that's where it first got started.
Well, I'm going to say, like our friend Dan Bigger is probably like the hardest working, most relentless man in manufacturing. I'm going to say I find you one of the most fascinating dudes in manufacturing. I know you're a avid traveler. Your goal is 100 countries. You've been in like 20 some countries. You have blog posts, amazing, wonderful blog posts on some of your travels. Encourage everybody to check that out. You have like this alter ego punk rock dude, So you gotta follow Chris on Twitter. Was it Chris Rock? Is that what?
Chris Rock. It's a play on words. If you see how some bands or people spell punk rock, they'll spell it R-A-W-K. And obviously, there's a famous Chris Rock out there, the comedian. Right. So I just kind of took my first name and changed the spelling of rock. But yeah, I joke around and say that's my perpetually 23-year-old pop punk alter ego.
Got it. Yeah.
And our partner Jeffrey Graham says punk rock all day, every day, right? So
absolutely.
Shout out to Sid. So let's follow your journey a little bit. So you go off to Marquette University and start your career at Anheuser-Busch, I believe, and then you end up at Rockwell Automation for quite a while, and you're in the Bay Area. So talk a little bit about how that evolution from Anheuser. I think you went back to Marquette. How you ended up.
Well, I can see. I know Milwaukee growing up in the Midwest. I can see how he got to Budweiser.
That's
Yeah, if you've been in Milwaukee, you know why he went to Budweiser.
Well, plus in St. Louis, that's the hometown of Anheuser-Busch. So
Yeah,
talk to me about that evolution of like coming out of college and how you got into manufacturing and Anheuser-Busch and so on and so forth.
Yeah, gosh, talk about two cool companies to work for, right? Like I'd say one of the things they have in common, of course, they're both industrial, they both have manufacturing, but I mean, just the sense of pride and particularly hometown pride those companies have, right? Like you mentioned it, Anheuser-Busch, St. Louis-based company back in the day. This is probably more pre-InBev acquisition when I was working there back 2007, 2008. People would just simply say, "Hey, I work at the brewery," right? So that was cool. When there was an opportunity to take that job, that was my first soiree into manufacturing. To be honest, didn't really have too much of a concept of what it was like to work in a factory as an engineer up until that point. And the funny thing was I actually worked on their aluminum can making side of their business. So I was with a company they have called Metal Container Corporation that makes a lot of their aluminum cans as well as cans for other folks. So talk about a fast-paced manufacturing environment. I was out there. I was a co-op and intern, so I was, quite frankly, they gave me what I felt was like really cool responsibility. I was managing capital projects that I certainly had some great mentors to help guide me along, but they set me up for success right from the get-go. Then after that, when it came time to look for a full-time job, I mentioned I got into engineering because I wanted to design roller coasters. But as I got through it, I realized there were other aspects of, let's say, the technical world, the engineering world that I liked besides from just the technical behind-the-desk design aspects of it. And when I learned, as I was interning at Rockwell in another engineering role, that there was such a thing as a sales engineer, I'm like, well, that's cool. I'm pretty extroverted, right? I'm into punk rock. I work at a college radio station. I'm like, this will be a great way to merge the things I'm good at, the things I'm interested in. And I was accepted into their sales training program. And that's where where that journey to where I am now, I feel really got started, because I spent half my time as a account manager for them down in Houston, Texas, and then the other half out in the Bay Area, where Kurt, that's where you and I first connected, was when I was out there and got started with manufacturing happy hour as kind of this offshoot of my role when I was out there.
And dude, now I'll tell you, I mean, you're just such a pioneer to come up with that. So, here you're at a major corporation, but you're bringing a real entrepreneurial spirit to a big corporation. And that's pretty cutting edge. 2015, 16, podcasting was still pretty new it's still new right now, but you're new to the streets. Talk about, like, when did you have that aha moment of, I know, like, you're big in, like, the craft brews, and you kind of merge the two together. Share that story, for any, like, we've got Gail on here. Dan, I think you'd be an amazing podcaster, or Val. We've been talking about, jumping into podcasts. Talk about that journey of, like, when did you have that aha moment? And, like, we're going to stop talking the talk. I'm going to walk the walk. Share a little bit on that.
Yeah, there are a couple things that came to head, right? Like, one of the things was I had been in sales for probably about 5 years at that point, right? And I'm like, okay, I know how to do a complex sales process. I know how to lead a pursuit team. But I mentioned I was doing college radio. I played in bands. I'm like, there's something that's missing. There's, like, that performance element, right? Like, I'm good. I feel comfortable behind a microphone, on stage, behind a camera, whatever you call it. And I'm like, so the first thing was I was trying to figure out how to work that into my job. I mentioned that I had moved from Houston to San Francisco, and you can imagine that the account base there might have a slightly different demographic, right? Like, in Houston, Texas, I was working with a lot of people that had been at their companies 20, 30 years, knew the ins and outs. Relationships were important. That handshake was big. You had to build trust. That was Texas, right? And not to say there aren't elements of that in the Bay Area, but everyone has their visions of Silicon Valley, right? A bunch of 20 and 30-year-olds running around, switching jobs every 2 to 3 years, working for these high-tech companies. So I'm like, okay, so my customer base is different. And this goes back to that moniker you mentioned that I have in my LinkedIn profile, saying I help people tell stories to their ideal customer. I'm like, well, if I'm going to communicate with my customers, I'm going to need to do it in a way that 20 and 30-year-olds are used to be communicating with. So I'm like, this is a perfect opportunity to take out the iPhone, pour a beer, because I've got that beer background in my career. I'm like, let's do something where we simplify topics in manufacturing and automation and talk about them the same way you'd have a conversation with someone over a beer. And for 9 months, I was just creating that video series on my iPhone where we do like, I don't know, 3 to 5 minute videos where we talk about, why would you use a managed switch, or how do you recruit millennial talent? We just cover the topics that were on the minds of manufacturers in quick videos, and I would put them on YouTube, and I largely just email them out to my customers, right? Because that's who I was focused on.
Yeah.
So that's where it got started. It was a tool to reach my customers the way they wanted to be reached.
Right. Dude, I think it was brilliant, and I took like a little LinkedIn hiatus, like in like 16, 17, but I still, I started seeing like your content, probably like 17 or 18 or whenever that was, or time that you and I connected. And it was just such a fascinating, unique concept, like you brought fun, and it wasn't anything that we went to out of the workplace. Hey, let's go grab a beer. Let's go to happy hour, And it was just a brilliant combination. And so this is what I'd like to dig into, Chris. You have a fantastic blog post from several years ago that you put out, and you put the reasons on why you launched Manufacturing Happy Hour. Do you remember this blog post? It was several years ago.
I do remember that blog post. I don't know exactly how I organized those points, but I think I've talked to a couple of them so far in that first answer. Yeah.
I'm sure you have. So, so number one, break into a new market. So again, for manufacturers, and again, like pre-COVID, this has been like, why? I'm not going to do a podcast. Are you crazy? Now it's a totally different mindset, right? So talk about like, I'm a small custom manufacturer. I bend metal, I cut steel, like, I do circuit boards. Why would I get into a podcast? I mean, like, you're a great success story, living proof, but just share a little bit about how did it help you break into new industries or new markets?
Yeah, a couple things. And it's funny because that blog post is probably 2 or 3 years old now. I'd say I have an additional answer on top of the one I gave back then, because one, it allows you to build expertise in a new area, right? Like when I was out there, Rockwell served, we're talking the Bay Area, right? So the semiconductor, big industry out there.
Right.
But, it's Rockwell got its start as a Rust Belt company in the Midwest, right? Automotive, food, and beverage, absolutely synonymous. Semiconductor, still working our way in there. So that was an opportunity for me to build expertise in that space, right? And build trust with customers, because that's what it's all about. As I've done more and more podcasting, a way to break into a new market with podcasting, gosh, like you look at these companies that do interview podcasts, they might interview people within their own company, but I think podcasting can be the ultimate prospecting tool, where if you reach out to the people that you wish you were your customers, and don't mention anything about your company yet, just say, hey, I do this podcast. I don't know. Let's say you're trying to grow the semiconductor industry. I do a semiconductor industry podcast. I'd love to talk to, this individual, because I think my audience would really resonate with what you have to say. All of a sudden, you're building a relationship with someone, not because they released an RFP or because you're trying to sell something to them right off the bat. You made a relationship with them independent of that by just providing value to them, getting in front of your audience, getting them in front of their audience, and giving them an opportunity to share their story. So that's where I think podcasting really can help you break into a new market.
That's awesome. And did you, it can be very strategic, right? As you go in and like, okay, who am I going to, so when you first started, were you strategic in like who you would bring on as a guest, or have you grown more strategically, or how, like, share a little bit of like, how do you choose your guests or topics, or, how did you approach it with Rockwell, or how do you do it now?
Yeah, I guess one thing I'd have to say is the answer I just gave is that's like ideal scenario, right? That's what you want to work for. But when you're starting a podcast, you might start with your friends, right?
Yeah.
Like I started with my coworkers that were in the office. It's like,
right.
Hey, Vinod, you're an expert in, managed switches, managed, unmanaged, automation, everything. Do you want to jump on this episode? Talk to my buddy Steve. I'm like, hey, we got to talk about components. You're our components area manager. You want to be on there? So we started there. I think, honestly, if I had to give like a piece of tactical advice to this answer, is you got to start building momentum some way, right? And you got to know that the whole world's not going to start watching you right out of the gate. I think that's where people get tripped up. They're like, oh man, I don't have thousands of subscribers after 2 weeks. Well, like, of course you don't, right? Like, yeah, the content you put out is good, but it takes time. It takes getting consistent. So my part of that story is like, hey, got to start off, get some initial content, go and talk with your friends, talk with your current customers, for example, people that already know you,
Right.
And then the other thing that happens there is you start getting feedback from your growing audience, right? People will be like, oh, I really like the episode you did on that, or I really like the episode you did on cybersecurity. You start getting more feedback. You know what the audience wants, and you can start catering to that with your, let's say, your next round of content as you keep rolling.
Right. I absolutely love that. And I've found it's also extremely helpful. You were talking, I do it quite often, actually. Somebody's on a topic. I'm like, oh, actually, we had a subject matter expert on that topic. Let me send you that episode.
Yeah.
If they let me just throw up a pretend hypothetical. If somebody asked me about, hey, have you heard of the digital twin? I'd be like, yeah, I know my buddy Greg Mishu has a real great podcast on that, and I have an episode. Let's share that with you. So again, I love what you've done with that. And again, before you and I even connected, I used to watch your episodes and all sorts of different content. Now, number 2 on that list, and you wrote that blog post, I think in 2018. So we'll just fire down that list.
Okay.
Attract a younger audience. And again, I love what you're saying with Rockwell, traditional, probably folks a lot my age, my generation, and you're trying to crack through into a younger market, younger generation. Share a little bit, like, what were some discoveries that you found? Maybe were there any interesting things you're like, man, I didn't see that coming with the podcast? Like any surprises, positive surprises by going this route?
Maybe surprises wouldn't be the right word for it, but it's funny. Like, I love talking about this blog post because I would probably agree with everything I put in there back then. Like me in 2021.
Yeah. Yep. I'm glad you put age aside. That's what I was giggling about, it's because you got the old guy in the room. I always, because people look at me and especially people that are my age, they go, what the hell are you doing? What? Yeah. I know.
So number 3 on the list, and I'd like to dig into this because I've been a huge benefactor of this factor, building a manufacturing community. I really want to hit on this one because like our friend Dan Bigger's on the program. He's a fierce advocate for U.S. manufacturing. He has his Twitter group, the MFG Twitter Hour. Every MFG hour, every Thursday, 2:00 Eastern time on Twitter. It's just a mass of manufacturers around the country that come together on Twitter. That is so new, cutting edge. That's a nice community that he's built. Damon's done a nice job with communities he's built through his company, Exit Your Way. Manufacturing Happy Hour. I've had the honor and privilege of connecting with, like I said, Greg Mishu, Jeff Long, Dave Griffith is amazing. He just did a post early, just about an hour before our program, of Niagara Falls, and I took a picture of Dave and I at Niagara Falls together. That we got together in person. And again, that was thanks to you.
Yeah.
So, and I could go on the list, Tim Wilborn, Atch, Sully, bunch of great dudes that come through Manufacturing Happy Hour. Did you think at the time, did you realize the type of community or friendships or networking and guys that are doing business together? Did you realize the impact that you would have when you first started, and you appreciate it now that you've done it a few years?
Maybe I hoped I would have that impact, right? It's hard to say like whether you're going to expect it to happen, right? I think my goal with building out the community, and to an extent it was a natural offshoot of Manufacturing Happy Hour, right? Like I used to bring my customers in the Bay Area together for happy hours because as a salesperson I'm like, yeah, they can listen to me talk about the solutions Rockwell Automation provides. I'd rather have my customers talking to one another saying, hey, this is how a Rockwell solution helped us, or even if it's something completely non-related to what my day job was. I just wanted to find ways to get people connected and add value, right? Like I was always an event planner. I liked throwing social events and things like that. So again, playing into some of my natural strengths there. But as I started to build out the community, I guess maybe one of my goals has been, well, I shouldn't say I guess. I mean, one of my goals is to get other people connected, whether it's something related to what I do or something else in the manufacturing industry, right?
Right.
Because if you're calling on, again, focusing on that target audience, it's not like it's every type of business professional out there. It's people that are in the manufacturing world. It's like getting them together, and it's about playing that long game, right? It's not about, what can you do for me tomorrow, or what can I do for you tomorrow? It's like, hey, sometimes it takes a couple of years for those relationships to build up. Sometimes it takes an opportunity for a business opportunity to come up with two people within a community along those lines. But I think it really goes back to just playing the long game, right? Again, I feel like I've got just a little bit more perspective of that than I did a while ago. Like I feel like maybe something we're taught incorrectly in college. It's like you got to know what you're going to do, and you're going to do that the rest of your life, right? But as I continue to go on, I'm like, gosh, what I'm doing now might start to look a little different in 5 years or 10 years or 20 years. So I'm just trying to build up, try to give people the connections they need to succeed in their careers and honestly their lives long term, right? Like whether these are business relationships, friendships, like that's been the goal. So did I realize what I was doing at the time? Maybe I had a bit of perception as to what could happen down the line, but again, it takes that consistency, sticking with it to start seeing some of these relationships blossom.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, at 34 years old, and again, you started this in your 20s. So just,
Mhm.
gosh, I wish I had your wisdom. It took me a long, long time to figure this out, but you do a great job, with and as a matter of fact, with COVID hit, man, like you became like a lot of, probably Greg could attest to this. A lot of us, it was like, man, that was our social life was like coming together. We'd have 20, 30 folks on a call. You were bringing in different speakers. We learned about AR and automation and all sorts of different great topics. You had subject matter experts. Then you would go around the room and just for a shameless, little
Yeah.
man, you were such a dear friend, support. I put a book out and man, you were just such a fierce advocate for me. I'm just so appreciative and such deep gratitude. You were just so supportive, helping me promote it. And so again, thank you for what you did, Chris. And you just it's just such a natural, like it's almost like a gift that you have of supporting other folks, shining that bright light on. And you actually did say number 4 in your last little part there, give away value while playing to my strengths. And again,
Mhm.
that's what you do such a great job is shining a bright light on folks. Let's talk about, I want to hit, we have one more. You have number 5.
Okay.
We'll get to 5 in a second. But let's talk, I want to segue into like, you took a huge, huge leap of faith this past year. I believe a year, is
Mhm.
it 2 years now or a year ago?
Year ago, coming up on that 1 year
That
anniversary.
1
Yeah.
year anniversary. So like Rockwell, major corporation, I was so impressed and just really admired how you handled yourself. And again, is that entrepreneurial spirit at this major company, but yet you took that leap of faith. Talk about, how did that decision come about? How did that feel? Was it a little nerve wracking? Was it smooth? What was that like from jumping from big company to entrepreneurship?
I kind of got, gosh, there's, I'm trying to think of the best way to answer this because there's so many different thoughts going through your head, right? I felt, I'm not, this might sound a little like out of the ordinary. I felt confident taking that leap. Like I knew there was uncertainty ahead.
Right.
I already had a client lined up. There were some things that where it's like, okay, like there are people that need the work that I'm doing that I could jump into, right? So that gave me some confidence right out of the gate. And I think that you mentioned it earlier, Kurt. Like we're still early in the podcasting game, right? Like it's not like a social media manager role at companies now, right? Like that role didn't really exist, 15 years ago,
Yeah,
10 years ago, but that's
exactly.
standard practice now. I'm like, it's probably
Right.
a little while before that gets formalized, right? So it's like, if I'm going to evolve this career in this unique direction that it's going, I probably need to take that leap of faith, right? And just see what happens. Cause I think Gary Vaynerchuk talks about this. Like, if something isn't working out, this is kind of ironic as well. I think we'll get to this later. You can go back to what you were doing before, right?
Yeah.
Like it's about taking that risk. And gosh, I just feel like it's completely changed my mentality around risk taking, right? Just seeing the while things might not work out the way you immediately expect them to, like they do work out in
Right.
certain ways. So to go back to your question, taking that leap of faith, I think what it comes down to, and I know I'm harping on this topic, but I think it's important. It was just the fact that I've been consistent with what I had been doing for 4 years, right? And I'm like, if I just stay consistent and I keep adding value the way I'm doing and find new ways to add value, things should work out in the end, even if things completely derail, which fortunately they never did. But I think just having that confidence and being consistent is what helped out.
Right. Well, dude, courage. It takes a lot of courage to do what you did, and a lot of folks will go through life, and that rear view mirror and regret, or like, man, would have, should have, could have. So again, really admire. Hats off to you to take that leap of faith. And like you said, that expression, you can always go home, right?
Yeah.
So if it doesn't work out, I'll go to plan B. And you just kind of figure it out. So talk about the transition itself. So you leave Rockwell. Great terms. You had amazing relationships, friendships, so on and so forth. And let's get up to that point in your career. And what were you finding that what was that first day like when you left Rockwell? Did it feel, how did that feel?
First thing I could tell you was I had moved to Wisconsin for that first day, and it was snowing in October. So that was the first thing that sticks out. I just moved from California to Wisconsin. It's snowing in October. I'm like, why? That might have been the first moment where it's like, what have I done?
Right.
But no, it was just diving in, right? Because all of a sudden I'm not a small fish in a big pond anymore. Like I'm, it's more startup life at that point. So it's like there's no onboarding period. You got to get to work right out of the gate. So I remember, making video content that first week for this new life I had just created for myself. So it's just that I think that's the first thing where it's like you realize it's like it's not the big corporation anymore. Like you got to get the work done. And not that you can't take time to be strategic and think about what you need to do, but you got to hit the ground running and you got to get out there. That was the first thing that struck me about that.
Right.
You had to hit the ground running. That's for sure.
Right. Damon, the line you always use, you eat what you kill when you're an entrepreneur, man. If you're not out and you're not eating, so I work with, a lot of friends, colleagues, whatever, that they're like, man, I could never do entrepreneurship. I just need the comfort and security of that paycheck, so on and so forth. So what's the past, again, we're in the middle of the pandemic, right in the middle of COVID, you decided to take this leap. What's this past year? What's it look like for you? What are some, I don't know if you want to share highs, lows, interesting, you're a roller coaster fan. Has it been a roller coaster? Has it been relatively smooth? How's it gone?
I'd say it's been a roller coaster in a good way, right? The nice thing about a roller coaster is, it's got like a positive end point, right? Like it goes up and down, but you're going to get back to, a level set at the end of it when it's all done. I mean, gosh, things that have gone well. I mean, I mentioned like taking on clients. It's funny. Bit of a personal story. I work with a company called Fix Software right now. A recent acquisition of Rockwell Automation, and that's not much of a coincidence, right? Like I had spent a lot of time at Rockwell, and now, funny enough, I'm kind of back into the fold. But what I think one thing that I got acquainted with was it's like the companies that I work with, and whether it's taking them on as client or jumping on in a full-time capacity, whatever it is, I want to make sure I align with their values, right? And I saw them. I'm like, this is some of the most cutting edge technology. Like this is a SaaS company in the manufacturing space, right? And something that solves such an obvious problem for a lot of maintenance departments. So, one of the things that it was just kind of funny as I was looking for more clients, I kind of ended up into this opportunity, right? Talking to Fix. And I look at it as once you start building a brand and once you start getting out there and really, I put a post on this on LinkedIn today. It's like LinkedIn should be a spot where you showcase your values on a regular basis, not pitch your product. And since I had started showcasing who I was and I had that base of work there, it made it more obvious that this, it's a two-way street, that they were a fit for me and I was a fit for them. And part of it was that I had that base of content, that base of work that people can see. oh yeah, this is what Chris does and this is what he's all about. And by the way, this is how he communicates as well. So it's been an adventure jumping back on with them. And did I think that was going to happen like 6 months into taking on independent clients? No, but I think that's one of the things, the difference between being a solopreneur and being someone that runs a company and a team per se. Like you can take on either individual client gigs or you can take on full-time gigs that fit your style.
Exactly. So again, guys, I dropped Chris's LinkedIn profile. I dropped a link for our program accidentally, but I have the link for Chris's LinkedIn profile. I have your manufacturing happy hour website, and I also have Fix. So share a little bit. I'm curious about Fix. What is Fix? What type of manufacturer are you working with? What solution do you what problem do you solve?
Yeah, good question. So, I mean, at the end of the day, what Fix does, and I'll explain what it is by definition, but they help maintenance teams move from being reactive in how they handle factory maintenance to being proactive in how they handle it. So, you can probably imagine what it's like being a maintenance person inside, I don't know, let's say a potato chip making plant, right? Like when something breaks, you got to go fix it. When a piece of equipment's jammed, you got to go get it unjammed. Well, what Fix is, it's what's called a CMMS system, so a computerized maintenance management system. And what that allows people to do is to better track and organize the way they execute maintenance. So, like I said, you might have to go out and fix a jam because, I don't know, there was an issue with a motor on that piece of equipment, right? Well, if you had that data in advance to say, hey, this motor is rotating a lot faster than it should be right now, you should probably go complete this work order on that piece of equipment. Maybe that equipment never would have gone down to begin with. So it's a system that maintenance folks can use to be more proactive and address issues before they become issues, right? Because if you go and do a typical maintenance shop, maybe not, I think there's a range right now, right? But some people might be using post-it notes to be like, hey, fix line 2. They might be using, I think this is pretty common, right? A spreadsheet that the whole department has access to that you update things on. But when you have an actual piece of software that's cloud-based and a single source of truth, and not only can you update it when you're in the maintenance shop, but hey, you can use your smartphone when you're out on the shop floor to be like, looks like there's an issue with the palletizers on line 3. You can log that in and get that sent off right away. So it's just a cool story that at the end of the day, like not only does it allow maintenance folks to be more proactive with it, but it makes their lives easier, right? Because I can tell you, like in sales and in running my own business, when I'm more proactive than reactive, I'm feeling a whole lot better about my day and the things I'm getting done. So that's in a problem, maybe longer than you wanted, but in a nutshell, that's the problem Fix solves.
Dude, that is absolutely awesome. What a great story, Chris, and what a perfect transition for you. Again, honor student, engineer and everything at Marquette and in college. I know you're a fierce Boy Scout, and just everything. You just had such a great career. You plunge into entrepreneurship, and now find yourself with this software. And so now I'm going to hit number 5 on your list, and I feel it ties perfectly. Number 5 was have some fun.
Yeah.
It was like right here to have a ton of fun, as a matter of fact. And as you describe what you're doing at Fix, you're like you talk about it like you're talking about a hockey game or a baseball game. It's like you're enthusiastic, you're excited. And again, most manufacturers, who wants to be proactive? Right? Let's being reactive. It's almost the nature of the beast, But I think this is such a wonderful, powerful solution that you guys are delivering. And what's fascinating, back to your story, you're like, I'm an extrovert, punk guy, da da da. Yeah, it's great for sales, but yet you're a brilliant marketer. And what I really admire is that you've gone from engineering. And, again, you can be your extrovert, but you're really a sophisticated, savvy marketer, taking on these early, being an early adapter, podcasting, so on and so forth. So what are some, again, folks that are just starting out right now, like our dear friend Val, we were having a conversation, Gail's starting to do some LinkedIn lives. Any pieces of advice that would speed it up for them as far as like doing their podcast or going live, or anything that you would share that would be tips for them to move the needle?
Make it about your customer, make it about your audience. Like that's probably the number one piece of advice, right? Like it's one thing to get comfortable on camera by maybe talking about a product that you have. Like maybe that's the way you get started, right? You're comfortable talking about features and benefits, right? But what I think people need to be more comfortable with is helping to share people's stories, helping to humanize the people behind equipment and things like that, and really listening to what your audience wants to hear as well. I mean, the example I give is, for whatever reason, when I do a cybersecurity episode, a manufacturing happy hour, it gets double the downloads of everything
Oh,
else.
does it
So
really? It's
yeah, so I mean, that's one way to listen to your audience, right? When the numbers don't lie, you're like, all right, guess we got to do more episodes on cybersecurity. Or when someone in the comment, like, let's say you do, I don't know, let's say you do a video on generations in the workforce, right? That's just an example. If you get a
yeah,
lot of people commenting and engaging on that, like, use that as a signal to be like, maybe I should talk about this topic more often. Or maybe reach out to some of the people that commented and said, hey, what do you want to hear more of? What do you like? What don't you like? Like, it's an incredible source of feedback that I don't think people take enough advantage of.
right. What another question I have for you? So going from Rockwell to and technically it's a division of Rockwell, right?
Yep. Yep.
So how describe culture differences from going from a monster company down to, like, is this more of a swift cutting edge? Like, describe the culture at Fix.
Yeah. To be blunt, there's I'd say the most important things are very similar. And when I say most important things, it's about like that culture of inclusion, right? Like that was one of the first things that stuck out. Like, we're looking for ways to make manufacturing more inclusive, make our teams more inclusive, make sure everyone's voice is heard and representative within these industries. And not only on that topic, but making sure these are places where people can do their best work, right? And I think that's it's been really cool seeing what happens when two companies come together like this, right? Because you're like, wow, these things, I mean, just the conversations mesh so well, right? The core values are there, right? What's different? Like, I mean, you can imagine it, right? Rockwell's a 23,000 person company, multi-billion-dollar global organization, and Fix is a 200 person and growing. I think it's closer to 250 people right now.
Right.
Software company that just started in like the past 10 years. So there's a lot of agility. There's a lot of speed. You can make decisions quicker. That's just kind of the nature of it, right? Like, I think one thing that I've learned, it's like when you're steering a really big ship, like a small mistake can start taking it really off course, and
Right.
it's harder
Right.
to adjust. When you're a small company, you can make those mistakes and quickly, adjust back and forth. So I think it's given me what it's helped with. It's given me an appreciation of both sides of the coin, right? It's awesome being able to go fast and break things and try new things quickly. But at the same time, like when you've got a large organization, you got to make sure some very core things are correct before you take a lot of really extensive action. And I'll go back to the original part of that comment, right? Just seeing how culturally aligned both organizations were when I jumped on board. That was one of the things that's like, huh, I could imagine when companies are looking to merge or when one's looking to acquire another, that's one thing you just got to look at as a non-negotiable, right? And I think that's been really cool, just seeing the the alignment and culture, as well as the strengths and the unique strengths that different types of organizations bring to the table.
That's phenomenal. So, man, God, Chris, I know we could talk all day. We're coming into
Yeah.
time. I want to get back to the table. So I know, Gail, I know you're dying to talk to these guys, or talk to Chris. Chris, a big thing that we wanted to talk about was your, podcasting. You hit the value, you hit the giving back, shining a bright light on folks. Talk about how you've been able to build up, when you made this smooth transition, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now, like, trying to attract the clients now for Fix compared to the clients that you were attracting for Rockwell. How are you utilizing LinkedIn, your podcasting now to really build your business with Fix?
Sure. I'm going to say it again. A lot of it's consistency, right? There's only,
Right.
it's about figuring out who's the audience for Fix, right? I mean, it's maintenance leaders, people that want to make their maintenance teams better, people on the maintenance team that are like, I want my life to be a little more organized. So it's about creating content that goes out to those people as well. And then, naturally, to talk to a large organization acquiring a smaller organization, you got to get the sales force spun up
Yeah.
on what that is. But it really goes back to the funny thing is, I didn't change my LinkedIn headline when I joined Fix,
Yeah.
because I knew my role was going to be the same thing, or my mission was going to be the same, right? It's helping manufacturers tell their story to the right people. It's helping salespeople. It's helping distributors tell the Fix story to their customers. It's me learning how to tell the story to the Rockwell channel, and it's also it's me learning how to tell the story to customers as well. A lot of what these things come down to are being able to articulate what you do in a simple fashion to the right person. So it's honestly, that's the way I transitioned, right? It was recognizing, hey, what I'm doing today is really no different in a lot of ways than what I need to be doing tomorrow. It's just a different audience and a different message.
That is awesome. So we'll close out on this, Chris. Fourth quarter. What's life looking like for fourth quarter for you?
Trade shows are back. I've got like trade shows on the, one a month coming up here. A little plug for Fix and Rockwell, if that's okay. Their automation fair,
Absolutely.
Houston, Texas in November. Going to be doing some cool things with A3 down in Memphis in October. So getting back on the road a little bit. Other things that are on the docket. The one thing I learned about running your own thing, running your own podcast, gosh, it takes some effort to get proactive and get into a state where you're like ahead of schedule, right? So I've got some cool guests lined up for the podcast right now, feeling more organized there. Because I really want to do some things like finally get some merch created for the people that have been listening to Manufacturing Happy Hour for a long time. Get a few more things done there. It's really what I would say is on the docket for this next quarter is finding new ways to make cool content for the right audience. That's what's going on.
Dude, drop the mic on that, man. Can you repeat that? Say it again. Cool.
Finding ways to make more cool content for the right audience. That's what it is right now.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you, man, that is awesome. So, Chris, what we're gonna do? Let's wind down. And first off, you know where I stand. I can't express my gratitude to you. The benefits I've reaped many benefits from belonging to your group, your crowd, from the speakers. Again, promote, your friendship, promoting my book and what have you. So thank you. A huge thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you to the manufacturing community, what you do, and just your fierce loyalty, your relentless drive, putting out this incredible content. We have some folks here. Hopefully, in the next 3, 4, 6 months, you'll see some new podcasters on the trail. You're seeing a lot of podcasting. We have our mutual friends Ray and Allison. As a matter of fact, I'm going to take a little screenshot right now.
Yeah.
So we can send that to Allison. There we go. So she'll be proud of us. But Chris, have your LinkedIn profile in there. Please check out Chris on LinkedIn. Check out his website. Check out Fix. And Chris, and as a matter of fact, I connected with your buddy Joe Sullivan this week, and so we had a great conversation. Joe in St. Louis, he's going to be. I'm going on his podcast. He's coming on our show next month. So again, just once again, another great connection. Thanks to you. So Chris, thank you. God bless you, dude. Appreciate everything you do, guys. Damon, I want to do a shout out. We have some big programs coming up. We do a lot of work with the manufacturing extension partnerships. If you guys are familiar with the MEPs around the country, great, amazing resource for all manufacturers, all 50 states. Damon is doing a webinar at University of Nebraska MEP on Tuesday. I'm blessed and fortunate. I'm doing one for the Pennsylvania MEP on Wednesday, and then we are in Purdue on Thursday. So man, we're covering 3 MEPs this week. I dropped those webinars in the chat box. Check us out. Damon's got a killer program coming up. So Damon, we're going to close it out. Take it away. And I wish everybody a killer weekend. Chris, thank you again. And hang on, we're going to go back to the tables and you guys can talk to Chris.
All right, Kurt and Chris, thanks so much. It was awesome. I was sitting here in the back because we got some echo problems going on LinkedIn. I was trying to give them the best audio I could, but thanks everyone. We got tons of comments too, by the way, Chris, on LinkedIn. People are loving the stuff. So we're going to go back to the tables here on Remo so we can talk with Chris. Everybody else on LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever the heck we're going on live. Go ahead, Kurt.
One more thing. So just, man, we had an awesome time, great time. I hate to end it on a somber note. Guys, tomorrow morning, let's think about what happened 20 years ago. Think about where you were at that very moment, how our country has just been so resilient and turned around. And just, I cannot believe 20 years has gone by, but God bless all the families that suffered and what our country went through, and just we're here stronger than ever. And so just let's think about what happened 20 years ago tomorrow morning. So God bless everybody. Get out there and crush it. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Kurt. All right, we're going to drop off here on LinkedIn and everywhere else, and we're going to go back to the tables in Remo. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Thanks for commenting and visiting us on Fridays.